So that's 35 minutes. I keep talking about that 35-minute mark because it seems to be the point of time when these hives find you. We're working away 20 minutes, half an hour, everything's cool. But 35 minutes, all of a sudden they find you. And makes life a little more unpleasant. So if we were here another 10 minutes, this place would be a cloud. But we work pretty fast. We don't have to physically break apart these boxes to put them on the truck. We just strip them off with the arm and away we go. So we have a tarp now, as you can see on the truck. We roll a tarp over top just to help keep the bees away and just to help alleviate that fresh smell of honey in the yard. So it just kind of covers things up a bit. And then we put the cleats on the side and it kind of seals the top off. So it works really well. So when we hit the next yard, they don't instantly smell us and attack us quicker than they have to. I'm taking a peek down into that second that we put on here. So we have the brood chamber and we returned them with that second. I'm just looking to see if there's any nectar up in that box. And these boxes are full of bees. Right full of bees. So we have that space to house the hive just to keep these girls working. And there's not a lot of nectar up into that second box. It's got me a little bit concerned. There's drags, like maybe a third of a frame, half a frame. Every once in a while there'll be like a third of a box on these hives. So there's drags and nectar still coming in. That I look down into that brood chamber and they are basically wall to wall. They're 8 to 9 frames of brood. And pollen's in there, usually on the outside of the brood nest. And not a lot of room for honey, but there is honey in there. We've had such a heavy honey flow that they've actually pushed honey down into that bottom box, which is really good actually, because it's going to buy me a little bit of time here. I have syrup coming mid next week, so if I start losing too much sleep, I guess I can just run into Winnipeg and get a tote and just set some syrup out for this first grouping of hives, which I might do. Because there's not going to be any honey in this yard now to harvest. So this yard is off production. So I'll be feeding, I'll start feeding. We'll put protein patties down this weekend and we'll likely feed some syrup into these top boxes just to keep these hives going. And what we'll be doing then is after we strip these second boxes off, they'll be robbed out before they come back to the honey house. So there'll be no chance of contaminations. But we need to be able to keep these hives on some kind of a sugar, be it nectar coming in, which is preferable, or we're going to have to put some syrup into these colonies just to help maintain their momentum as they build out this winter nest. So we just pulled off this yard that happens to be within that pasture rotation I've been yapping about for the last little while, where we have clover growing through different paddocks. You can actually see it out there. So I have continual clover growth, even though we haven't, there's our cattle there. Even though we haven't had any rain, we have a rejuvenated clover growth all the way across this pasture. And the interesting thing that's happening because of that is I'll show you. We are about 35 minutes into this yard pulling honey. These boxes are nice and heavy. Very mild robbing right now. That's probably good. Perfect. They have just found the boxes. They are robbing. But unlike the other 3 yards we were at this morning, we are practically in a cloud of bees. And the only difference is that clover. The clover I have growing out within our pasture. Look at the bee activity in this yard. It's absolutely tremendous. There is clover pollen coming into these colonies. And there is honey in these boxes. So I'm likely going to get another box of honey off this yard just because of the clover out. And I'm not growing the clover to, yield more honey. I'm growing the clover to keep these bees going, to keep them developing, to maintain themselves, to develop them out. Honey to boot. Honey is the secondary benefit of that, but the main reason is to keep these hives going. It certainly looks a little bit rough out there in that paddock. We sure could use a rain to revive that grass and that clover. But take a look. All that raggedness there is the clover plants, and they've rejuvenated their growth. Those are fresh flowers. Those bees are just going absolute bonkers on them. Bingo! So here we are at a yard 3 miles away from that last one. 35 minutes in, we've got the yard stripped off. And heavy robbing. They have found us right away. And they want it back. The only difference from this yard and the other one 3 miles away is the clover. So I'm going to get out of here right now, head back to another yard to finish off this truckload. And checking down into that second in this yard, and they are dry. I'm most definitely going to have to put feed on these guys either tonight or tomorrow. So I will say it again. Clover, 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 clover. And this is after 20 minutes. The guys get really motivated when the bees start robbing, so we just blast through these yards. So we just pulled the boxes off. I don't have my smoker with me. You're a little bit cranky. I'm looking at combs just with a little bit of sunflower honey in here. So this should keep them going for just a bit. I don't expect that they'll be able to bring enough in to harvest, but enough just to keep them sustained. And that's what I'm going for right now. Just want to keep them going. So we pulled off 2.5 truckloads of honey off of 6 yards. Boxes are coming off heavy. Very encouraging. As I was working here, all of a sudden the CB radio started up and the harvest crew is in full swing. We just got going and the wheat is testing dry, so they are going. So this dry weather really moves things forward really quickly. As you can see within my honey operation, I'm going from lush, almost like a box a week, to full out heavy robbing. And the same has happened with the grain farm. The crop's just coming along, and the heat and dryness just brings everything mature just as quick as that. So we got to be on top of things. We got to be able to anticipate what's going on here and just try our best just to keep up. We desperately need a rain here to just bring things back to life a little bit. It's tough to hope for a rain just when harvest starts, but I think even Adam would want a little bit of rain just to help finish off the soybeans and the corn. So we can only hope. That's totally out of our control. We just have to take whatever comes, and well, there's not a damn thing we can do about it.
This means what I think it means. We're in trouble. Big trouble. This bee is bananas, as you say. Something's about to happen.
So I'm just driving through the pasture which we had grazed down a few weeks ago, and we haven't got a rain since we grazed it down, so this pasture is a little bit slow coming back, as was the clover. But as you can see, these plants are going for broke naturally because they're at the end of their life cycle. So what they're trying to do is as we had stripped off all the growth with the grazing. These plants are so focused on producing seed set that it just puts all of its energy just bringing up this rejuvenated growth to flower and to set seed. So throughout this whole pasture, this paddock here, even without a rain, these plants are going for broke. They are setting flower and they're providing nutrition for my hives. Now as soon as we get a rain, if a rain ever does come through here again, it'll revive the grass and it'll bring these clovers on extra strong. And not only will it be providing that lush, highly nutritious pollen and nectar for my bees, but it's also adding to the soil. Adding to the soil through root mass, adding to the soil through all the nitrogen fixing bacterias, which in turn provide a healthier soil and provides that nutrients for the grass to be able to grow. So the strategy we have here is more than just for the honeybees. It's actually more so just for the land, the soil quality, and just by just one more way of diversifying the cattle diet. And all that free nitrogen, we almost think of it as being free, as just being naturally provided, deposited into our soils, and that's what our grass will use.